And we are live speaking about Skeleton Crew Season 1, Episode 1 and 2. How are you, Mandalore?
I am good, and you?
I'm doing great. And I think before we really dive deep into these two episodes, I think you can show some of your background and
Oh,
explain to us and the viewer that will watch on the playback um, what's your relationship toward Star Wars in general? Because sometimes maybe people don't see the visual.
well, I think I explained it on the long ass horrible review of the show that shall not be named anymore. Um, except when for a slight comparison later on. Um, Basically, it's just I grew up with Star Wars. I went in through a lot of stuff. Like I was into Star Wars, I was in Transformers and all that. I really loved Episode One. I remember watching the original trilogy before the re-releases that came, the original re-releases, the special effects ones in the gold boxes. I remember renting them from Blockbuster, and then yeah, just one of my best friends. He was really into it while I was really into Marvel, and I was just like, it sort of started with the what was the movie that came out? Um, the Force Awakens. Um, I was like, I don't really watch, like I wasn't as into Star Wars at that time as like, okay. So I asked another friend who watches, like, just give me a rundown. Like, who did they kill? Why was it so bad? And blah blah blah. By their opinion, I got that, and then I sort of paid attention, but wasn't really into Star Wars up until a little bit after the last movie, and then I was like, my friend was really into it, and he was cool stuff, so I started collecting as like, because I collect Hot Toys. I used to have This used to all be Marvel. But I was like, some of those Hot Toys look really good. I was like, I said, I'm just going to get a couple. I'll just get one or two Jedi and Sith just because they're cool with the lightsabers. They'll work with the Marvel. I'll work with all the Iron Mans I have. I said, but I'm not going to get into Stormtroopers because there was a lot of Stormtroopers then, and there's even more now. And I've got so many Stormtroopers, I can't fit them all in a display case that they go on top to me. So I have space for all of them. And yeah, I just with my friend and then getting into it, it just went from there. And I know my limit where I can't be too interested in too many things at once because I don't like to collect half-assed. So I just got rid of the Marvel and upgraded to Star Wars.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Um, so I guess with that intro, nobody can call you a Star Wars hater. Hopefully, if they do,
Oh, I
they
do
are
get called that by a certain group of people. Um,
okay.
it's
Okay.
mostly in relation just to the last shall not be named, um, because of debates and questioning and stuff I went into about things that were messed up and just things that just did not actually exist in that and all that sort of jumble. Go see that one big overall review where I had to watch everything for you guys. Oh, I hate myself for that still, for agreeing to that. Um, but yeah, I had fights with people online just about bleeding crystals and all that sort of fun. And then, yeah. So I have been, but there's always those people with almost every fandom. There's always toxic people and non-toxic and people who take it a little too seriously, and I can get like that. Sometimes we're like, well, if I know something, I was like, I know this, I've done research into this. No matter how fake and non-existent it is in real life, I know it. Um, so I come at it, especially when they're going so hard on it, saying you're just hating it because so and so. Is like, no, I hate it because so reasons, and explain them.
Perfect. Well, That's the intro. Now I will start off by saying I knew this show existed, but I didn't really want to cover it or watch it until you came in and asked me, "Do you plan on covering Skeleton Crew?" And I was like, you know what? Because I enjoyed our exchange during the acolyte and all of that TV show. I was like, you know what? Let's go into Skeleton Crew with him because I know he knows a lot about the lore, Star Wars in general, and I think it will be fun. So I guess this is what triggered me into like watching this show at all. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. Um, so yeah, I guess now I will let you shit on the show if you hated it, but if you liked it, that would be interesting because I happen to like it. So I don't know what did you think of the first episode? Because now
Well,
let's spoil everything. Let's
well,
talk about it.
before we get into spoilers, just a general thing. Now, it could be because of what was last on was so horrendous that almost anything had to be better. But the show actually isn't that bad. It's clearly meant for kids. Like it's clearly sort of like people mention different old shows that are combined into this. It's definitely not I don't see it as some people say a return to Star Wars. I see it as a return to just Star Wars in stories without inserting certain ideas just to use it as a thing. It's not something that if you don't watch, you're going to miss out on much. At the moment, it's only been the first 2 episodes, so it's hard to know if there's going to be some sort of connection because this takes place after the creation of the New Republic, and this takes place, I think, after season 2 of Mando or season 3 of Mando, because the one pirate who Mando sort of dealt with, the Nikito one, I think it was Nikito pirate, was part of the crew of the Spinach Captain. So I'm not sure if there's going to be any, other than that character being in both shows, is going to have any connection. But for right now, as a standalone shown from the 2 episodes, it's clearly meant for kids and family. But they actually put a lot. Apparently there's like no 3D effects. This is all props and stuff. Like they put their money into actually developing outfits instead of just blue screening everything.
That's cool.
And the costumes honestly look great. Then I like most of the new aliens, although doing all these different animals was a bit kind of corny. Like, but this story is for kids, and it's just you take away the story and the kiddie so far, because most shows when they start up, they don't go in hard. They sort of tell you, and you sort of discover things, and the excitement picks up, and it's definitely there. But it's a good show, and it's a nice, just sort of casual watch. I don't know if this will have rewatchability, and depending on how the season ends and the story that's told. Like if it connects to other things, you might want to go back and rewatch and connect, or if it connects to other stories, watch it when you do rewatches. If you watch everything, sort of like when you watch The Mandalorian, you also watch Book of Boba Fett because it connects to each. But the show is actually not horrible. It's not perfect. It's not great, but it's decent.
Yeah. I guess now we can spoil the entire thing.
Yeah.
It's almost full week, so I think it's fair shot. You are warned. Let's spoil it. What did you think of the first episode? And let's just focus on episode 1 right now, and then after that we will go to 2.
Because watching them all in one sitting, it's hard to remember which part was which.
Okay.
And they were sort of connected. So, the one thing I want to say is, I'm pretty sure everyone is that the Captain Silo, who appeared at the very beginning, who
Yeah.
was then killed at the pirate heist. I'm pretty sure that is Laudna.
Okay.
Um, he was credited in being in that first episode, even though you never see him unmasked in the first episode. So the actor who plays him, but I'm sure most people have connected those two. It was very kind of, and this is where I know a lot of people complain about the sort of suburbia sort of feel, like it just looks like a regular neighborhood and stuff, and it just kind of felt weird in a Star Wars, like, and that's just because we never really looked at little sort of suburbs. It's always been downtowns and business areas where it's all um but it was, other than what happened in episode 1, as the connection to the where he keeps talking about the Jedi, um that he hopes it's a Jedi temple. I can't remember if that was in episode 2. No, episode.
That was episode 1. Episode 1 is most of the kids stuff until they find the ship. So episode 2 was mainly in space and
Yeah,
after they
okay.
found the ship.
Um,
So anything before the ship is episode 1.
or up to the ship, up to
Yeah. Up to the flying off of the ship.
They're trying to compete with Baby Grogu with the Baby Elephant brothers,
Yeah.
but Grogu still wins. There's
Yeah.
no Baby Grogu.
Yeah.
There's not so much that happens. It's more of just like, it's almost like a filler episode / introduction where you just get to meet the characters. I know it's very much a sort of flip of the casual 80s, 90s sort of show like this, where the boy would be the bad at trying to be a badass, keep up with his bully and whatnot. And then he'd have a geeky friend who would help him, sort of thing, where Fern and KB would be swapped with Neil and Wim. Wim would, in the old days, it would have been reversed. But I also don't see it as a horrible thing. Like a lot of people were complaining about that. It wasn't bad. One thing I have to say is I hope they don't stay in their school uniforms the whole show, because that just, I hate when they do that. Like, it just feels so corny. SM33 was amazing. I know that's episode 2, but yeah, the whole beginning of the show was just, I think they were trying to sort of set up that it's sort of suburbia. It's kind of like that things aren't all as they seem, because it almost, like, compared to normal Star Wars stories, like especially when you look on Coruscant and whatnot, there's always this darker side to it. And in this show, it's very kind of perfect life, perfect town. Don't look behind the curtains. There's not much to really spoil for the first episode, just because it's just characters. There's not much.
It's set up, yeah.
Yeah, it's all sort of set up so you know who the characters are. There's not much.
Do you
Real-
want to add something about episode 1?
Not really. Like, there wasn't much other than it was fine. It was a bit dull out of the 2 episodes, because now when we find out the whole story and go back to watching it, you might have sort of more understanding and look for sort of the cracks,
Yeah.
which are hinted in episode 2.
Yeah. So I guess I will take the floor now. I don't have a lot to say, and that would be something like a broken record, because episode 2 as well, I don't have much to say, unfortunately. My big issue with the first episode would be the plot convenience. The lead crashing his bike into a random Jedi temple in the middle of the woods. To fix it, make the kid go inside these woods often so it's organic how he finds out about the Jedi temple, but actually that's a ship. But at that point he thought that was a Jedi temple. So I just find that very convenient. Oh, I crashed my bike into that spaceship. And I know it's important because that's that's what creates the plot and the rest
Well,
of
it
the
was sort of set
story.
up where
But
he had to take an alternate route, and he sort of saw the girls take the route the previous day and he was like, oh, he saw them take a shortcut. He'll take a shortcut, and which led him to go a different way, which led him to finding it. It was a bit sort of lazy, like have it a little bit more interesting of a way for them to find it, but it was. I don't see it as a huge issue.
yeah, that's my only issue with the first episode. Outside of that, I was generally interested. The action when there was something going on was entertaining. The kid arguing over their future was kind of cool. It's a kid's thing to do, especially when they have exams that will tell what they will do with their lives in the future. I will say that the costumes and the makeup was kind of cool. And now that you're saying it's all protestic and not CGI, it earns even more points in my books. Um, the kids were entertaining. The lead desire for exciting adventures was interesting. Nice mirror where someone is there waiting for the lead friend to come back home, while the lead come back home and nobody was waiting for him. So what I mean by there is, the main character is that is not around, and his family is around. So that creates a very interesting dynamic where the other kid has support and the main character doesn't, and maybe that's why he craves adventure. That's one thing to say. It's also well shown how the main character is a goddamn liar, and that's funny. The mother pressuring her daughter was entertaining, and again, maybe that pressure is the reason why she is such a brat sometimes. And yeah, that first episode, I genuinely liked it a lot, and
Okay, now quick question before we go on to episode 2. Out of the 4 kids, who did you? Because I will say this: the acting was okay, but they're kids. Like, yeah,
kids,
it was not great.
I'm generous
Who's
with
your least
kids.
favorite? Who? Well, yeah, so am I. And their acting is way better than what was done last time. Um, but out of the 4 kids, which was your sort of? Who did you like the most? Not just for the character, but who did you think did the best job, and who was the most interesting character, and who did you think was the least interesting?
Actually, you bringing this up, I like that because I start seeing a crack there, and I've seen now an issue I didn't see before you mentioned that.
Hmm.
The fourth kid, um, the one with the girl that's
KB,
the friend
the little Asian girl with the white hair, KB.
with the
She was
glasses. Yeah, I
yeah.
think we are talking about the same. The fourth kid, she's not needed. She's goddamn filler. I I'm not saying I hate the character, but I feel like she's filler. She's not needed because she doesn't add anything to anything.
I think her whole point, especially being able to connect to computers, is a plot device. So how the kids can get out of things very easily and just before I'll get to mine, who is your favorite though?
That's a very hard question. I'm torn apart between the bossy girl and the main character. The friend, I think the friend is cool because he's like the voice of reason. He's the mature one in the bunch, but I don't know. It's a tie between the
Win and
the
Fur.
the bossy girl and the main character.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name, so I actually have a picture from thing of products that has all their names underneath because I kept saying the white hair girl, the angry, the bossy girl and whatnot, and the main guy. For me, in all honesty, I actually the girl who you disliked you KB, I actually liked her the most. That was sort of like I always sort of liked that character was the sort of odd one out. She played it very well. She's different. She doesn't do too much. She's kind of there for what she needs to be, and she doesn't the character felt natural to her. And actually, the one who I liked the least
Is the bossy girl.
that was the main kid. I found him
really?
bratty and annoying. Like, he's the type of kid who wants to make a mountain out of a molehill because it could be so much more. It could be so much more, and you just shut up and do what you have to do. We can talk about this later. It's like, no, we gotta do this. We gotta do this.
It reminds me of my half sister. Maybe that's why I like that kid. I don't know.
I had his act again. I also found him to be the weakest actor.
Yeah.
It was just kind of whiny. KB just sort of KB, the one who I like the most, she seemed to be the best at being sort of like awkward, but without being awkward, sort of that set aside character. Like, I can handle this bossy person. I'm used to it. And just Fern was also the actress for Fern was also really good because she played being a little bitch really well. It's the character. I'm not calling the kid a bitch. I'm saying the character was a bitch. But she also showed a caring side at the same time. Like, you could see the cracks in all the characters. Like, one wants adventure and one acts tough, but he's really scared for Win. Fern is the tough one. She's the boss. She can handle anything, but she actually really cares. She's not a standalone character. She actually does care. And she's like, it's a little, like with a lot of these are a little bit obvious. Neil is the one who's very dependent on family and friends because he was willing to fail his test just so he could do it again with his friend. So his friend wasn't alone, but he didn't want to. He's going to become more independent as the show comes on, more confident in himself by the end of the season. Neil also had the actor who did Neil also had a lot easier because he didn't have to do the facial he didn't have to act with facial expression. It was all an animatronic head. Whether he was in it or whether he was just voicing it. But yeah, I can't really say much about him because you don't really see the kid acting. It's more the voice, and the voice did fine. But when I found to be the actor who did it seemed to be the weakest in likability and also in acting.
Yeah.
I know kids, I'm being judgmental, but
yeah, I with kids, I try to not look at acting, and even acting in general. Like, when I see cracks in the acting, that means the acting is really trash. But
sometimes it's not the actor, it's the writing. Like, you can only act so well with horrendous writing.
Yeah.
The acolyte is 50-50 on that.
Yeah.
Horrendous acting with
the acolyte is the perfect example of bad acting. Like, the main character was supposed to have twin sisters, but both sisters were the goddamn same shit. So that's what we got with the acolyte.
Well, it was a horrendous story, horrendous written dialogue with a horrendous actors. Like, there was no saving that. Like, and they had a couple real actors in there, like Carrie Ann Moss, but they didn't utilize her.
She was just there to die and to have a big name attached to it,
and to be the tough boss who to blame and whatnot. But what's funny is just thinking about when we were talking about the costumes and stuff. There was a lot more humans in Acolyte. Like, when you went to the Jedi Temple and stuff, there wasn't a lot of alien as much. In most of the scenes,
there's a lot of them.
It's not even there's a lot of them, but they're all sort of unique and well designed. Like, you go to, like, stepping into episode 2, when they land at the space station, like, there's so many different types of aliens, ones we've seen before, some new ones, and it's also well done. Whereas in the Acolyte, it was just, they couldn't even get humans right. Like, they seem to even fail on the background actors. Like, I'm sorry, a fat Jedi just doesn't make sense, especially a younger. Like, I understand there could be, but it was just, and the designs of some, like, even just the haircuts and the outfits in the other show were just so horrendous. And I'm not just trying to pick up, like, I was watching it, and part of it was just like, holy crap. Like, I remember seeing one when they're in the Jedi Village or whatnot, with the guy who commits suicide, even though again, not getting into too much, but there's one guy with this really crappy haircut that's just like, you can't like. But this show has done what, like, you don't even look at the story, just looking at this design alone of the show is actually really good.
Yeah. So I guess to get back to Skeleton Crew, what would be your grade out of 10 for the first episode, and only the first episode because we are not in the second episode yet?
So wait, what's my favorite moment, or what?
Grade, your grade. Your out of 10.
Out of 10, I would say 6 or 7, just because there's not much to it. Like, again, it's an intro episode. Like, intro episodes are never always good. And there's been shows that I've loved. I walked away from for a while because the first episode was so boring. Breaking Bad was I couldn't stand it after the first episode. Went back, forced myself through it, rewatched it, like, holy shit, this story is actually good, and then watched there. There's nothing exciting really. Like, it's more just character development and like it's not bad, but it's nothing spectacular. That's why I give it over a 50-50 out of a 5.
Okay. I will sound crazy, but after our talk and me finding out about an extra issue because of the fourth kid that I don't give a shit about, that episode is now a 9.5 out of 10 for me because it's near perfection. My issues are nitpicks, and I liked watching it, and I was surprised because I was primed to hate it. I mean, I didn't like Acolyte. I thought that was dog shit. And here we got an actual good product. So maybe it's because the bar was that low. I don't know.
Well, and I was going into the show without high expectations because after the Acolyte, I was like, what are they going to do for the next show? But also, it's just like kid actors. Like, kid-led shows are meant for kids. Like, as an adult,
yeah,
the main favorite area is the Mandoverse and like Clone Wars and stuff. They're a little bit more of adult stories. I do not have high expectations for this. It's from the whole beginning of the mentioning of the show. I was just like, I'll watch it because it's Star Wars, just as new. But will I enjoy it? I don't know. Will I rewatch it? I don't know. But so far, it seems to be actually enjoyable. Not in a, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, but it's something that you can put on that you're just looking for Star Wars, something different that you haven't watched 200 times already, and just put it on and watch.
Yeah. So I guess that's the segue to episode 2. What did you think of this second episode?
This was definitely a much, I wouldn't say better, but more interesting episode. You're in space, you get to meet the droid SM-33, and like, Star Wars is good for making droids you just love. They're not always 100% on them, but they did well with this one, being a pirate and just confused and whatnot, and just ancient. The whole, I don't really care about pirates too much, but the whole sort of scoundrel pirate sort of story that they're doing and introducing and the kids are finally being introduced to, that they realize they're part of now, is actually a well designed, once again. Like, it feels like a space pirate sort of story a little bit more, especially when you get to the space station. It was interesting just watching the kids going through and trying to find someone and just sort of exploring it. It felt genuine. Like, I wasn't about the stripper who was trying to save the young girl, telling her to get out of there. It was hard to tell if she was trying to lure her in to be a child slave. But then it actually seemed like, no, you got to go here to get. I was like, I wasn't sure, but when she said, no, I got shipped, I was like, okay, you do what you have to do, but just get out of here. Like, it felt genuine, like a well-written show that shows different aspects, and it's not just written to be written.
Yeah.
like there's the introduction without his helmet of, is it Jod? How do you pronounce it? Jodna?
I don't know. I got no clue.
Well, they haven't really said his name. If they did, I don't really remember. But you sort of meet him. Whether he's an actual Jet, where they hint at where he uses Jedi powers to bring the key to him, whether he actually is a Jedi or not, is kind of a. I'm not sure if, because remember we saw someone else who was sort of had Jedi powers in the Kenobi show.
Yeah.
So who knows if he is a Jedi? I'm guessing it'll be hinted at you won't find out till the end of the show whether he actually is or isn't. Because I'm guessing there's going to be things where he's like, well, I'm not really a Jedi. I lied about that. And then he really is. Or he's going to say, I really am a Jedi. And you find out it's all been tricks. Whether you to trust him or not. Because he's either going to be a good guy in the end, or he's going to be the pirate captain from before and trying to reclaim what was his and be a bad guy.
Yeah.
So again, it's only 2 episodes. We're only in the 2nd episode, so it's hard to say, but there's definitely an interest in it. They're definitely inputting little bits of story into it. When they said they were from that one planet, and people all started and all the pirates started laughing, and then they get the explanation that it's a long last myth of a story planet that held lots of value. Really sort of makes you sort of look back at the episode 1, noticing cracks in it, like it's almost a utopian civilization where everyone does a test at a young age, and then they get filled out to do that job. And it's a perfect society that doesn't really rely on outside sources. They're completely self-reliant, the planet, which is weird because they don't allow other ships on the planet and whatnot without permission. So it's going to be one of those utopian sort of stories where they realize, okay, shit wasn't really that good to begin with. And whether they go back or if this show continues after this, will it be they continue this sort of pirate life or space adventure, or do they go back to the story, which could be a lie, their life, or what happens next? With Star Wars, you never sort of know what's going to happen. But again, this one had a lot more costume design, a lot more aliens, a lot more interactions, even just background stuff where they are just seeing the backgrounds they're walking through, and you just see, because it's filled with pirates and people.
Yeah.
And just how they react to things, and just seeing them in the backgrounds, and when they find out they have Republic credits, and like, whoa, that's like so rare. I think it did a good job at setting up sort of the environment that the show is going to be in. I hope it's not too kiddie where it's like a murder, like sort of like those child mystery solving things. Like every episode's a new, like sort of new thing that they have to figure out to try and get home. But the story so far is definitely more interesting, and we haven't seen enough of Jod or Lodna, so we have to wait to really sort of comment about his character too much, but it's played by a good actor, so
do you want to add anything else?
Not that I can think of at the moment.
Okay, well, I guess I'll take a shot at it. That episode was really good, but again, I don't have a lot to say. I only had one issue this time around. The guy said he was there for a long time, yet he had access to the key the entire time. Hopefully, it's because he is a liar and it's not a plot hole. I mentioned that. We will see in the future episode. Maybe that one issue will erase itself with what we get, or maybe it will stick around and he just waited for some random time to free himself. I don't know. We will see. Hopefully he is playing the kids. Hopefully this is what's going on there. Because if it's not what's going on there, that feels stupid. Oh, I can escape, but I chose not to.
Well, just on that, I was thinking about that, and that's why we're mentioning the Jedi ability. Because if he has the sort of like magnets and whatnot that the other guy used, in Obi-Wan, the only reason why I could think of him not if whether or not he has Jedi powers or he's been there for a long time. I don't think he's been there for a long time, but we don't know when that first part of the episode took place.
Well,
Compared
he
to the
said he
story.
was there for a long time. He said
But-
it.
But from when the first pirate captain was sort of usurped at the very end of the beginning, we don't know if that was days before, weeks before, months before, or years before, if he's been in there for years.
Yeah.
So he could have been in there for years. The only reason I could think of that he hasn't really tried escaping is because he's got nowhere to go. He's on a space station. And they all knew who he was and they all hated him for failing. So they just there was no point escaping without a reason to escape. And when he found out the kids have a ship, he's like, well, I've got a way off now.
Oh, I hope it's your thing as well. That could be great. So
That's the only way that they could explain. If it was just, if he's using them as a way off the planet or off the space station, that's the best option I could see for that reason. If it's not, that's just lazy. That's just
that's bad. If he's there and he had a mean to leave and he didn't leave, that's bad. But if it's all part of something that makes sense, that's great. So again, maybe I nitpick too much. Outside of that, I thought the kid lying to the droid was entertaining. The droid was cool. Probably the best part of that episode, to be honest. The cantina was entertaining with all of the new species, the new aliens. The action was also great. I think I really enjoyed that episode, and I'm surprised to say that, but coming from Disney Plus, this show so far had great pacing. Disney Plus suck with pacing most of the time, but here not really. So I will let you talk on that.
Well, no, the pacing. I just think the pacing was even better in this episode than it was the first one. The first one I found kind of very sluggish, a little bit, because they're going to end up in, because the whole thing about them is the skeleton crew. They're going to end up on a ship. All this. They're going to meet up with the one character, and you're just waiting that whole episode, and it was about 45 minutes. I think it was a longer episode.
Yeah.
So 46 minutes of setup.
Yeah.
Was a bit slow, but in this they introduced the pirate, the droid, and he's actually, they do it pretty well, where he sort of wakes up and the sort of pulling down on the switch by accident. That was kind of cool. And then the mouse in his eye, once it starts getting going, it's going, and it's not too fast, it's not too slow.
Yeah. So I thought the runtime, 30-minute an episode, worked very well, and I don't have a lot more to say. Again, I think that show is solid so far, and I'm invested. You said it's for the kids and all, and it's for the family, and I see that. But sometimes it's fun. It's a breath of fresh air.
Don't expect The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett or that sort of story, or even the acolyte, where it's just murder and betrayal and stuff. There's going to be betrayal, but it's not going to be the whole literal stab in the back, leaving someone for dead. It's going to be the
he's working with the bad guys.
It's just working with the bad guys, and just, you betrayed me and stuff. That's if the with how we sort of said what the options for the captain, if he's a good guy in the end, or if he's a bad guy, or bad switch, whatever they decide to do. If he says, well, you got them to, you tricked them or stuff, and they're going to be all, but we trusted you and stuff. It's not going to be something. There's going to be no Mandalorian versus a bar fight. Or the Mandalorians versus that, but it still seems to be enough action to sort of keep you interested.
Yeah.
The whole cantina, the droid whose shield got warm up and used it to cook them. to burn them afterwards. That was kind of cool and funny. It just hearing it squeal. So I was like, I've never seen that sort of done in that and start like that's sort of like an action 90s movie sort of thing, like something heats up from reflecting and then you use that to burn someone, or a gun barrel, like you shoot a couple and then you hit them against the ear, or you use the barrel against the ear just to sort of torture them. That just was another nice little touch. Like
I just genuinely like what we got so far. And again, I don't have a lot more to say, so because of that, I think it's the perfect moment to ask you, do you have anything else you'd like to share?
No space bonfires.
That's good. Another
Very good.
acolyte reference. So what would be your grade out of 10 for the second episode?
The second episode would have been 8.5 out of 10. Again, it's nothing perfect. There's just watching it first time, and it's all sort of new compared to something that a season 2 or knowing of a character or sort of like Mandalorians in general. You have an idea going into those shows. You can sort of more rate that. But there's not too much going on that's going, oh my God, I'm on the tip of my toes. I can't wait for the next episode. But it's definitely enough to keep you interested. And yeah, that's why it's not a perfect score. Like, again, once the show's over, and you do, when we do the whole show review in total, it might be a different story then, like, depending on how the show goes. Because, like, one bad episode or one bad storyline that's at the end, it doesn't tie up properly, or it's just written poorly. Like, he could have gone out this whole time, he just didn't. As long as they find a good excuse for that. But if there's these lazy things inserted, it can bring down the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like the original moments. So right now there's room for improvement, but it's also quite enjoyable. Like, it doesn't need to change much, but
yeah. So my score as of right now, because I don't know what the future has to tell us, it's a 9.7 because I only have one issue. However, if they fix that issue, that episode is a 10 for me. It depends on whether they will fix that issue or not in the future. Hopefully they do, so I'm like, oh, that episode was actually amazing. Again, I don't have a lot to say, unfortunately, but I'm entertained. I'm looking forward for another episode, and that's a nice breath of fresh air. Now I will ask you, what are your expectations? What do you look forward for next week episode, or actually Monday episode? Yeah.
Well, next episode. Well, I don't even know if it's next episode. The one thing that wouldn't just, if the show's really good, it wouldn't ruin it, but it'd be a huge disappointment if Hondo Ohnaka is not in the show, even as a cameo for 1 second. If he's not in the original pirate, the original space pirate from Clone Wars, if he's not in the show, that'll be a big disappointment. For the next episode, I just hope to get more. The main interest for me is what's going to happen next, and is Jodna an actual Jedi? Because again, if he was also a real Jedi, he wouldn't. That would also explain why he didn't actually rob anything that would be violence or whatnot, or why he didn't escape right away, because he was waiting for a crew that he could go with, rather than just a whole break out and fight everyone and escape.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, and whether or not he actually is the same character as the pirate, that's also yet to be shown completely. So we'll see. It's just, there is one thing that's been brought out about the next episode, which is modern Star Wars.
Why?
If you've heard, one of the characters, I think it's one of the kids, is shown to have 2 mothers.
Okay.
So it's just that kind of modern sort of, like, it's not.
But why does she just say it in a line?
I don't know. Someone who has seen it or read the show said that. So again, no one has an issue with those type of characters, as long as it's not stories centered around it. If they use the fact that the character has 2 mothers as a reason for that to base their motives in that episode, that would be garbage. If it's just them explaining their history a bit more and who they are and why they are how they are, it's fine. If it's just some information thrown, it all depends on how it's played out.
Yeah. Yeah. In my end, I don't expect much. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I want in episode 3 to have a bone thrown at me about that fourth character I don't give a shit about. I want that character to be relevant. I'm sorry, but if you got a crew of
She's
four
a so
characters,
far, she's a plot device where she can
yeah,
connect and read computers.
I ate
Um,
this shit. Like I will bring
did,
Gotham TV show because I covered that on my channel many times.
did you
Uh,
watch The Bad Batch?
no, I didn't.
Okay, because I was gonna say they always have that one character who can always like in Star Wars. They usually have like it's usually a droid like R2 or someone.
Droid is
Um,
different because they're a tool and they are not really
no, I
meant to be a
know,
character. Uh,
but I do too hope that they develop more in her than just she's a because she wasn't even very utilized. She was just kind of a plot device where she was the one person who puts up with the one character, and then she can plug into any device and read it sort of to understand it.
have the
It's kind
droid
of
do that. I mean, like,
well, no, I know that, but I'm just hoping that she becomes
yeah,
there's more to her than just being that sort of plot device.
yeah,
Because again, she seems to be a good actor. She seems to play it well, but have her more than a plot device.
yeah. That's my only expectation because so far she's the weak part. I'm somewhat interested about like the three characters. The boss girl is the most memorable one, and the lead is the lead, and I know a kid like that, so I'm kind of invested because I think that character is somewhat realistic to what kids are, and
Well, and
the
Neil's the comic relief. The little elephant kid is comic
yeah,
relief.
and he's also kind of needed, and he's also kind of the voice of reason for the main
Well,
character.
he also
So
seems to be the heart in the group. Like
he makes the rest of the cast bright. He makes them it makes them work better. I don't know how to word it properly,
he's
but
like he's the character who's not necessarily the favorite, but when you look at it, he's the one that holds everything together. Like there's always that
yeah,
one character who's usually the goof or the one character who doesn't do much or doesn't seem very important. And like
he is the
when you think
backbone.
yes, he's the piece
The
that locks in
backbone.
that holds everything together.
Yeah.
He brings everyone down to reality, and not even in a rude way, like "shut up, you're being annoying now." It's more like Wim being too out of there trying to make things like, dude, stay with the group. Let's just figure this out together. Don't touch anything. Just I'm going with the people who are actually trying to get us out of here, not to trying to get us in possibly more trouble. To what's her name? Fern, the boss girl. She's a tough, and he's trying to show her to care and whatnot, that you're not alone in all this. I'm guessing KB is sort of too technical and too literal. She's like,
Yeah.
so he's probably like, you relax a bit, just guess for yourself. You don't, not everything can be just figured out by clicking into something. You have to sort of use your brain and sort of look at all the possibilities. And he's also the comic relief. Like, and he seems to be doing stuff. Like, he's not just nothing, but the whole being stuck trying to get down and his legs just waving there. And he's just like, and he's an elephant. He's a cute little elephant with those cute little brothers. And then in the bathtub in the first episode.
I'm invested. I'm looking forward for next week.
Yes. It's not something I don't know if I'll stay at like with all the other shows. Well, except for the one night I had to watch it all. I watched it all in one sitting just to finish up. Like Mandalorian and Ahsoka, I would stay up till it went up line. I don't know what time they're doing it for this. It was usually my time between 1 and 2 a.m. So for you about between 2 and 3.
Usually I'm at work, so I will end up watching Tuesday, so we can do the stream Wednesday.
Yeah,
I
but
think that will be our day if you're available on
yeah, but
Wednesday.
for this show, I don't know if I'm going to stay up till for the premiere time to watch it, or if I can just watch it the next day when when I
Yeah.
wake up.
Yeah.
Because the first two episodes premiered around 7 o'clock at night here.
Yeah.
So if it's a 7 o'clock premiere in the evening, that's I can watch. I'll watch it then, but I'm not going to stay up till early morning just to catch it. It's not one of those where I have to know what happens next.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. I'm with you, and yeah, I fully agree. I'm not that on the edge of my seat. I think it's sold it so far.
Like for me, Ahsoka, I want because there was a lot of Clone Wars. There was a lot of history and stuff that you learned in the Clone Wars. There's a lot of stuff that you saw in Rebels. It was a continuation of those stories, and there was a lot of lore in there. And
Yeah.
like the Star Whales and just stuff from if you paid attention to the other shows, like even just at the very end with the father pointing, like that takes you back to Clone Wars and also into Rebels. They brought that back up. There was always something you want to know what happens next. You want to see how this plays out. You wanted to, like they always ended off on a really good way. Like you see you hear Anakin's voice, and you turn around and you see, and Ahsoka sees Anakin's like, oh my god, what happens next? You want to see that episode as soon as it's out. But this one, it's enjoyable, and that's why I don't rate it like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. It's just because it's good, but I don't need to go out of my way for the show.
Yeah.
Like again, usually by the end of the I think it's an 8 episode season.
Yeah, 8 episode. Yeah.
By the end of it, it might be season 2 might be the premiere if they have a season 2. I might want to be up for that. But right now, with how the story's going, and that can always change per episode.
It can go downhill from now on.
It can go down. It can go up. It can, but there's no real sort of demand to go. I gotta see that right away. It's cool if I'm up, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it.
I'm with you, 100%. I'm with you. Looking forward for next episode and not at the edge of the seat. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we kind of close off for today?
Nope, it's a good show. And if you don't watch it, it's one of those shows that so far there's nothing really much you're missing. There's no real lore breaking or anything, but it's a decent show.
It's enjoyable. And with this, thank you a lot, Mandalore. I'm looking forward to talk about it with you. That's my favorite part of the week. Not necessarily watching, but talking about it. And we are out for tonight. See you Wednesday.